I should be at home in a rocking chair. That's where I should be. But I'm here, unfortunately, for you guys. So I'm going to talk about different codes. I'm going to give a lead into how I have some experience in other codes, just so that I'm reasonably capable of talking about other codes. Reasonably, maybe. Okay. So we get started here. Different code, same principles. I'm a reluctant speaker here, I can tell you that first, but we'll press on. Everything started for me in St. Peter's. I grew up in a cooperation scheme in Cabra West, one of the early settlers there. And we played a lot on the street, would you believe one of the games we played in the street was hurling? We couldn't play Gaelic football there, it was all soccer people. And with a great time. So it was a great introduction. And I'm making this point because it's a very important stage in the development of a player, from my perspective. So my parents obviously switched me on to sport, but I went then from there playing on the streets and in the playground down to St. Peter's School where my father was a student, and he figured this is the place to go. This place will put manners on him. So down I went to St. Peter's, and I came across two people. The first teacher I had when I went upstairs into senior for 5 years was a fellow called Paddy Woods. A phenomenal teacher. He ended up lecturing in St. Pat's. A lot of you might remember him. You may have had him as a lecturer. What a human being. He gave us every day in the evening. He knew the value of sport and exercise and activity. Every evening he would pick two teams out of the class. We'd go up, play the game, and the winners got two sums off or half an essay off. And so there was a motive, we wanted to get up there and win to get 2 sums off the Ecker. So he switched us on to that. Then after a couple of years playing those kind of games, Mossy O'Connor, a Kerryman, came into the room and said, listen, I understand you can play a bit. I said, I never played Gaelic football. It doesn't matter, come up. And he was right too. And this guy brought us up to the Phoenix Park. We walked to the Phoenix Park, about 1.5 miles from Peter's School, walked up. He had picked the teams, got us set out there, and took a whistle in his hand and rarely blew it, unless there was something. And I learned so much from this guy without him telling me anything. He just moved in beside you. If you made a mistake or you took an anxious shot, he didn't say anything. He didn't call a halt to everybody, hold up everything. He just walked, materialized beside you. Mickey, did you see John on your right there? No, you're comfortable on the ball. Take a bit more time. Back in. I mean, what a way to learn the thing in the game. And down the road, I just looked back and said, who taught me how to play the game? And unfortunately, I came to the solution that nobody taught me how to play the game. But lots of people facilitated me learning the game. Just like walking. The most important perambulatory movement a human being makes is walking. And you learn that yourself. It's aided by a mother. You're crawling over to her, or your father, holding onto an armchair, getting up. Nobody tells you, listen, Michael, you're 6 months old. It's time to walk. Come over here. Nobody says that, They let you develop it, and when you're ready to climb up, we do it at different stages. You climb up, put a finger out to let you hold and help you move, but doesn't direct you. They let you take them with them. So from my perspective, that was a very important concept for me to look back on in my views when I eventually came to coaching. So it's a long way around, okay? So from St. Peter's, I was dragged down to Clonagale. I lived in Cabra West. Sometimes I lost my fare gambling on the side of the road, had to run down to Ringsend and play a match, and then walk home. But that was more exercise as well, and I learned a lesson not to be gambling too much, and I gave it up pretty early. So I actually won with Clonagale, I was there for about 10 years, 12 years maybe, and I won junior and intermediate hurling championships with them. And at the next phase was with Dublin. At 19 years of age, I was brought into a Dublin squad that just won the All-Ireland. They won it in September, and they normally started the league towards the end of October or early November. So I got the nod to go down there. I couldn't believe it. Went to my father, told him. He said, listen, son, don't get too excited. He said, better men than you didn't get the place on the team. You're just going in for it to be assessed, you know. So he kept my feet on the ground anyway. I came down and complained to my mother, and she says, no, he's right. Anyway, what do you expect? Anyway, what a time I had with Dublin. Phenomenal. Worked with them right through, worked alongside Heffernan. Two things that happened to me. First day, myself and Paddy Holden walked into the dressing room. Jim Crowell, we were shaken. These guys had won an All-Ireland. Vincent's had won 3 or 4 championships coming into this. And we went in together very sheepishly. Jim Crowley, still alive, great player, great person, great family. Brother-in-law of Cathal O'Leary's, another great guy. He came over to the two of us and said, listen, fellas, you're going to be around here a long time. We're looking there thinking this will be the first day and the last day. And he saw something in us, obviously. He had played against us once in a league semi-final, which we won, one of the few we won. And so he probably... Anyway, his advice to me was, to the two of us, listen, fellas, you're going to be around here a long time. Don't forget your friends. Don't forget the people you grew up with. What a phenomenal concept to throw into a young fella, to build them up. You're going to be here. Just anyway. The next guy over was Mossy Whelan, who won an All-Ireland with Jim and 1 million championships with Vincent's. His statement to me was, listen, you're his buddy, Paddy. Yeah, okay. So if Paddy gets into a fight here, if he's in a problem, he has to handle that. That's his problem. But you watch the back door. Watch the back door. So then he said, and you, Mickey, he said, if he's in a fight, that's his fight. Let him fight that. That's his problem. You watch the back door, because the greatest injury you'll get is a knock from the side, somebody coming in while your jaws are loose. What an education and looking after yourself. I mean, so this just gets better anyway for me, but boring for you guys maybe. Okay, so worked with them, by the way, for about, was with Vincent until 1968. Still playing away, still on the Dublin team. And the management, we'd been beaten in a couple of finals and a couple of semi-finals. Vincents were winning everything. So I feared, listen, I'm getting old here now. This is 1968. These guys asked me to come in and meet with them. Went in. I thought they were going to ask me to stop playing and coach. They asked me to coach. And they said, but you're very important to the team. We want you to play, and you take the coaching and the training, and the 3 selectors will go wherever you want. So I did. So I was probably lucky. We won the league, won the championship, won the league, and a couple of weeks after that, Heffernan was gathering the senior team together again. He appointed me captain. Great, big deal. And the following, that was on a Wednesday, on the following Saturday, he was driving me out to the airport. I was emigrating to America. So I went to Davidson Elkins. That's got my first degree there, Davidson Elkins. From Davidson Elkins, I played soccer. I was on a soccer scholarship there, I hardly played for club, but played a good bit of it for the factory when I was serving my time as an apprentice. So I was quite good anyway. Not bad. So I got a scholarship there, and it helped me get through to my degree, get through there. And then I went down to, having played with them, I was played for the national team. We were in a national final. I got a lot of awards and stuff like that and that. So I was a reasonable player in soccer, obviously, I was a 4-year All-American, actually, and at the time there was only 8 people in any sport 4-year All-American, so there were 2, junior college and senior college. So it gives me some idea. I then moved on from I went to West Virginia there, got a master's degree in West Virginia in sports science. Before I came home, I happened to play with those 3 guys. What's happening there? I can see them because I'm looking at the next slide, okay? So see those 3 guys? There's 2 legends there, and there's me. And I had the honor of playing with them. Would you believe that? And Pat, where's Pat? There's an incredible photograph, isn't it? Christy Ring, Mick O'Connell, and a dope on the far side, okay? So we played together, played a lot of Gaelic football. That's in Australia. We toured Australia, New Zealand, Tahiti, the Fiji Islands. John Kerry O'Donnell paid for it all. Brought these all. I went down as a guest because I was living in West Virginia at the time. Anyway, the point I'm trying to make here is this guy, Ring, came over to me at half-time in the football game. He and I played a hurling game. Then the football game came on, and half-time of the football game, this guy came over to me and he said, and called O'Connell over. He said, listen, I didn't come out here to lose. After playing one game, he was retired, he'd had a heart attack, and he's in his 40s here. And he's telling me, you get the ball, or we're going to give you the ball. Anyway, it just goes to show you, the guy never stopped being a competitor. Brilliant. And the other guy is a genius too. Now, let's get on with the next stage. There's the team that we were in. Look at that rag ball team. I think that's Ollie Walsh in the middle. That's Niall Sheehy beside him. I'm there. Mick O'Connell is there. And Christy Ring is there. So that's the evidence that we played together, fellas. From West Virginia, I came back to Dublin. Went to look for Clan of Gael. They weren't there. They were off out the south side. So they were in Cabinteely. I was living in Sutton. So anyway, I 2 kids, wanted to get them join the club somewhere, and I went to Ted Coolin, the president. I said, there's no club down there. They changed the place. Iodine Park I played, and every time you fell, you got scratched with coke. But they had built a running track in it and then houses a estate around it. So any of you from Clan of Gael now will recognise that, but you might know what precedes it. Anyway, I couldn't go out. I couldn't afford. I started at the lowest rung of the ladder, at 30 with 4 children. I got the same wage as a 20-year-old going into teach for his first time. Anyway, I ended up bringing my kids. Ted Coolin, the president of Clan of Gael, told me to bring them down to Vincent's. Brought them down to Vincent's. Heffernan and his wily ways finagled me into help manage an intermediate team. We were beaten in a final by Nafina. And the day that we were beaten, I was actually playing. The team had inveigled me into playing in the blinking thing. So, and Heffernan materialized again beside me. I'm not going to start you tomorrow. What do you mean I'm not starting? I'm finished playing football. No, I want to win a club All-Ireland. So the whole thing was Heffernan's nuances in behind there, just sucking me in bit by bit. Anyway, I ended, despite all my protestations, I played with them, went on, won a couple of championships, managed them to a couple of championships, won the Club All-Ireland, managed them to a Club All-Ireland. So it was a great phase in my life. But the reason I'm doing this, I'm giving a background, and it's going to try and support what I'm trying to get across to you later on. Okay. So during the time that after I finished with Vincent's for a period of time, I was involved with college soccer teams at World University Games, college League of Ireland players who were on the team playing. So I did a lot of managing with them, managed with another Tommy Conley from Dundalk, with an under 15 and under 16 Irish team. You just didn't know that. Anyway, so I had I now started to feel I'm going to try and educate myself a little further in that area. Progress to all the awards to a UEFA A license. So I just surrendered the UEFA A license about 2 weeks ago because I figured this is it, I'm finished. And then this man came on to me and mine got on the other ground. So it wasn't finished, but it's finished after today. And I hope you're only starting, folks. So getting back to this here, what's happening here? I need to press the right button, you Wally. So a UEFA badge. I was with Dundalk in '95. I was a coach with Tommy Connolly. We were the two coaches that won their last premiership. They've won 3 in a row since that, but it was 20 years. My things seemed to go in 20 years. It was that was World University Games logo. I was at 7 or 8, one as a manager and the other coach, and the others as head of chef de mission. So then I decided I'd make my way here. I wanted to get a further education. I wanted to do a PhD when I came home from America, and I went to Limerick, and there was nowhere to do it. They weren't ready. They were only supervising masters. So I promised myself when I retired I'd do it. That's what I did. I keep my promises, by the way. And that includes when I'm telling a player if he doesn't do something, he'll be gone. He knows he'll be gone. So anyway, my philosophy, fellas, I'm going to get on to this here. It's a lifetime of sport, parents, coaches, and teachers. When I was at World University Games, I was up at 6, out before anybody, looking at the warm-ups. I couldn't get enough, and I still can't get enough. It's a thing that has me, I'm obsessed by sport. Okay. So education and research, this all role of decision-making really fuels my philosophy, my coaching philosophy, okay? Personal coaching philosophy and games-based approach. I use a games-based approach, and I use it in guided discovery learning. So I don't tell people what to do. I put conditions into games that forces them to use what I'm trying to get them to use. I don't tell them because I like people to learn implicitly, not explicitly. So if you're telling them things to do, there's noise in their head when they're trying to do it. They're thinking, what did he say here? Whereas if they come to the solution themselves, it's their default mode. They go back to what they've answered themselves. They've discovered themselves. So that's where I'm at there in my coaching philosophy. And a lot of that changed and mellowed over the years with all the experiences that I had there. So that's where I'm at now. So in the last 10, 15 years, there's an amount of stuff just coming on there. And the last speaker said, look, strength training is not the be-all and end-all. There's none of it the be-all and end-all. The one thing that, as he said too, you have to be able to play the game. That's the name of the game here, folks. Whatever game you're taking up, it's about the game. The other stuff is ancillary, okay? There's all sorts of mechanisms. We know what you're going to think even earlier. That's what we'll know the next time, how is he making this decision making. But that's all we're short of. Anyway, all these gadgets telling us where you can run, the speed you're at, pace you're at. But even they can be cheated. There was a rugby player getting very high scores on their what do you call the yoke on their back? The GPS, and they found out this guy, it didn't seem involved too much in this, and what he was doing was running on the spot. Every time there was rooks or pucks, he was running on the spot there. So he was a bright guy, but they eventually found it out because his scores were too good. Anyway, look at, I'm trying to bring this, I bring all those kind of stuff down that I inhale or imbibe. I bring it down to try to get the common sense. How can I get this across in a different vernacular? Okay, so, yeah, go the right way and it'll help. Yeah, I often went backwards now, to tell you the truth. So, there, see all those sports there? There's netball, basketball, soccer, Gaelic, Australian rules, and rugby. For us PE teachers, there's a classification of invasion games. And the reason for that, they're all invasion games. And the reason for that is that the team sport game it's a team sport game with, and I can't read that there now, that's very dark. It's a team sport game with similar play structures. Each team invades opponent's territory to score, and likewise, they defend their own territory to prevent scores. So that's the basic structure of all those games. So they're categorized as invasion games. You're invading the territory to get the scores. This wasn't an easy thing to put together, and I hope it won't be too hard for you to listen to. With many transferable strategies and tactics, so there's a lot of commonality above all those games. They're very close to each other, and the systems are all the same, okay? So this is what this talk is about, comparing that and how I got through that. So, receiving, catching, control, they're examples of the transfer, one of the transferable, some of the transferable skills. Sending and throwing, when we have the ball, we're trying to move it up the field. We do that by either throwing in rugby or striking it with a stick in hockey or whatever, or hurling, striking it with a stick, great. Striking it with a, come on, okay. By hand, foot, or implement. Movement, speed, evasion, agility, and marking. All those elements of the games, of all the games, are in all the games, those elements there. Game sense, perception, pattern recognition, anticipation, and decision making. And that's the area that I'm really into. Because I think at the top level, everybody is technically as gifted as each other. They can shoot, they can pass, and everybody is as fit as each other now with all the stuff that's going out there. And I think that games are won and lost on good and bad decision making. I think it's very important. So that's what's leading me into the way I coach, right? So offensive, keeping possession. For example, I wouldn't tell them how to is this the way I want you to pass, or this. I would put in a condition actually there of keeping possession. Keep possession. The only way you can keep possession is by passing it or soul it. And you won't be able to soul it and let it pitch. You'll soon learn that there'll be guys looking for passes and lay it off. So keeping possession is what I will be working on, but I'll be tweaking the conditions each time to get them better and taking them a little bit further. So teammates, ball reception, okay? Defensive, man mark, and so on. They're the tactics and strategies that are common with all those games, right? And they're very common in our sport. So the relationship between a player and the situation around him is dynamic in invasion games. There's nobody standing and kicking there. They're moving and they're reading the game, okay? Skills are performed under the condition of an unpredictable, constantly changing environment. It just requires a considerable amount of contextual processing. You've got to read where they are, who's coming at me, who's going to take the ball, who can I give it to, who's looking for supporting me to take a pass. So it requires a considerable amount of contextual processing. It's really game sense. That's the difference. The guy that has the game sense at a very high level reads what's going to happen, okay? Players are constrained by the capacity of the process. So depending on their ages, their brains are not developed too much, so you don't go into a classroom and give them quantum physics. You go in and do adding and subtraction. When you master that, then you go into maybe multiplication. So there's stages that you go through. And it's the same with the conditions that you put in. They have to be just slightly above a challenge for the players that you're putting the conditions in for, okay? The expert players perform intuitively under pressure. They have to do it. They've a millisecond sometimes to make a decision, okay? They perform readily, they more readily recognize and recall specific patterns of play. They make decisions rapidly and efficiently. As I said, in half a second they have to do it. They have to read 3 or 4 situations and make the right make one. Generally select the correct option. 9 out of 10 times, the elite player will select the best option. How does that come about? It comes about because the brain has seen, the brain has seen what's going on, and it sends a message to the motor brain for it to react. It sends an action, okay? So you're building mental schemas. The more you play, the more, not drills, but the more you play in games, the more you're meeting these mental schemas, and the brain is taking the ones that were successful, and they're moving, and it sees them, so it knows the reaction to it. It's a very complicated thing, but I'm getting to where once you know that that's what's happening, I'm trying to get you to do everything in a game-like scenario, not in a drill. Put it into a game. Put it into something where people are moving to tackle you and other guys are looking for a pass, okay? So they do it by rapidly extracting information from a related experience stored in long-term memory, right? So how can you get them? How can you build up that amount of experiences if you're not playing? If you're spending 2/3 of your time on drills, how can you build up the schematic reading or deciding what to do, how to do, and when to do it is just as important. And this, for me, is very important, right? Poor decision making rather than technical execution is more likely to be the cause of the thing. So it comes down to me, for me, it comes down to decision making. So what we see is the eye perceives something that's going on, neurologically transfers to a part of the brain that understands it and knows what, this is happening all the time, fellas. And the simple remedy is use games. That's why I'm getting to this, giving you a bit of the science stuff. And then it goes to the motor part of the brain, and that decides what response is going to give, whether you're going to kick the ball hard or low, or where you're going to block. That's the mechanism there. So there's a very neurological and mental schema development in all sports development. And I take the bottom line to go straight in, no matter what I'm teaching or what I want to work on, I put it into a small-sided game that challenges the players. At underage, they should be all playing small-sided games. If you have 20 guys on the field, you have 10 guys looking for the ball off to take from you. You have 9 looking for some of them are looking for to take it off you too, your own team, but they're making themselves available. So you have 19 concepts there that you have to deal with. Whereas if you're in 5v5, just like the addition and subtraction, with the kids. If you're 5v5, you have only 5 opponents and 4. So it's reduced. And so when you master that, then you go into the more complicated and you build them up. So that's the way I do it. You don't have to do it. I'm just telling you where I'm coming from, okay? So it's the perception action. That whole concept is the perception action process, right? So that you have to have that for decision making, and you can only learn it in actual games, okay? So the perception action coupling requires time spent learning to perceive the relevant information required to make the correct decision. So you're seeing lots of things. You're seeing the guys running around, there's people shouting at you, looking for passes. But the good player, eventually from experience, your eyes is sending what it sees all the time to your brain, and if you've got the more and more experience that you've got in playing the games, it recognizes them easier and goes straight to it. That's the science to it in normal language, we'd say. So the brain supports the action selection. The information is only created by the task as it unfolds. These are the facts. This is how it happens. So the information is only created by the task as it unfolds. That's the message that's taken in there. So highly contextual, and it's highly context and task specific. So kicking a ball in a drill doesn't have a relationship to kicking a ball in a game. There's going to be somebody coming to take it off you and somebody looking for the pass it, and you have to take that. And neither one of them might be the right choice. Maybe you have to evade the guy and get in and get a shot for goal. So you maximize that in games rather than in drills. So when I'm with young people, I get them. As soon as they have the rudiment of the skill, I get them to perfect the skill, the technique of kicking or catching. I get them to improve it all the time in game situations. That's what I do. Okay. Perception action coupling requires time spent learning drills, supports the action selection. This information is only created by the task as it unfolds. highly context, and they have limited transfer, right? That's the main message I want to get. Game appreciation, game-based coaching, that's what I use, game appreciation. It provides the game appreciation development of it. Perceptual and tactical awareness, even if it's at a very low level with underage kids, but it's developing. If you look at George Best, skinny young fella, you know, probably himself and Dennis Law, both of them went to Manchester United, and they just were fed there and encouraged to do what they did. They had all the skills, and they had learned all the skills playing with other kids on the street, hour after hour after hour. Probably didn't put much time into academia, but nevertheless, the point I'm trying to reinforce here is that they went to Manchester United with all those skills. Manchester United fed them and built them up and brought them along the line. But they had these, and they were building up, and they got to a different level at Manchester United, so the brain was able to tweak and develop with that. But they had a head start with decision-making and perception. They had that area well developed before they went there. Encouraging creativity, and it ensures greater relevance to the competitive performance. There's absolutely no doubt, and I'm a zealot about this. I'm telling you this, hoping you'll take it on board, but you don't have to. That's what I do, right? Game-based model determines how to create practice that allows players to learn implicitly. It manipulates the constraints, conditions of practice activity to an appropriate level, I just told you that, to cause an improvement in skill. There's no point in giving them something that they're very good at, and just that'll happen anyway. Start to challenge them. Look for another dimension there. And as you go up the ladder with the different caliber of player you're dealing with, this goes up as well. Okay, you start really near the top with top class players. It's goal orientated. I don't tell them I want you to do this or that, kicking the ball this way or that way. I put a condition in, for example, that will encourage the passing, like I said. If I put in a condition that you to make 2 passes here before you get into do the half, and do all kind of stuff there. If I want to work on the fence, I put a condition in where the guy, one of the teams has to, or both teams, when they have possession, have to take 2 solos. So if they have to take 2 solos, the smart guy on the team will realize that there's 2 moves here to me. He's just gone by me, but he still has to make 2. So he's encouraged to get back after him. That's the way I do it, rather than telling them, this is what you need to do. They know that they need to not stand by when the guy goes, but they do it a lot. But if you put it into a conditioned game, intuitively it comes along for them, okay? Guide and shape rather than dictate. Guide and shape. See what you want to do, how you're going to go about it, and rely on skill, observation, and player questioning. Discovery, that's what discovery learning really is, you know. Game-based method, warm-up, dynamic. This is just for the people who might want to work with underage in the early phase. Warm-up, I do this with every level I'm on. Warm-up, dynamic and specific. I put the speed in very, very early in that warm-up, because they have to be at their level, whether they're going into a game or going into practice games with me. So warm up, then I play a game. Then if there's something breaking down in it, I've given them kind of concepts to do. If it's breaking down, I call them together and say, look, what's happening here? You know, where is it going? And the beauty about this is at the top level, guys are going to come in there with answers, and other guys are looking. They're simple answers, really. And then I say, well, how can we reverse that? And they come up with a solution. And in my view, that's implicit learning. They've come up with a solution. I could easily tell them what to do. I don't. Back to the game, go a game. That moves out. Then I can put in another condition I want, get on there, further questions and challenges, progression of the game. Okay, progression of the game there. And really, I would repeat that cycle at different levels, different demands, different challenges, and to warm down. But the most important thing here is to focus on technique, skill, only when it improves the game or the ability of the player to play the game. I don't care. Some of the best golfers in the world have terrible swings, but it gets the job done for them. So why would you screw them up? I often think about our lads that won the three majors. What's his name? Yeah, Porrick. I mean, he was on a roll there. 3 in the 1 year now. It wasn't in the 1 year, it was in the 12 months, but it was over 2 years, the British Open, and then the following year, the British Open. And then he started to move in. He probably figured he had to take it to another level. And the Yanks have a great saying, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And I think it's a very good concept. Why would you try and fix something that's really working for this guy, okay? There are times to coach, you have to be balanced. I don't know what he means by that, but I know what he means, but it's not a good use of word to know that. The urge to step in and show how good you are as a coach. You know, how often do we do that? How often do we figure I have to put my stamp on this? It's really not the way to go. Sometimes they learn more from making the mistakes. It ain't sometimes, fellas. They always learn more from making mistakes. The old action coupling there, the perception acting coupling is going to make sure that if they make the mistakes in a game situation, it just fits back into that area of the brain that they have stored the stuff in, okay? Evidence. Do we need evidence here? Not really. But I then went to DCU and did a PhD at the end of my time. And I went to Limerick to see if I could do a PhD. They weren't ready to supervise it when I came home. So I had 5 kids. I had 4 at the time, but I had 5 eventually within another year. And I was struggling financially, so I couldn't do that. I promised myself, when I retire, that's what I'm going to do. And that's what I did, okay? So part of the study, I'll just give you this idea. This is important. Under 10s, we took 2 under 10 teams, okay? We played with the teams. We played a 15-a-side game, and we played 4 smaller-side games. And the important thing about this is, in all the games, they all had the same area to cover, whether they played 5-a-side or 15-a-side. They covered the same area. And the way I did that was, I divided, say, the senior, what they were playing on as a 15, and I divided that by 30 because there's 30 people there. And that gave me a square yardage at the time for those games, okay? So I kept them all to that. So it was very similar to the game you're playing in. When I'm training senior county players, I do the very same thing. So I'm not making it easy. They're working in the same area. They have to cover the same space, and they have to learn what we're trying to do in the same space. Crow Park. That's the same. It's about 420 square yards. So I would make their area, every time I'm building a small-sided game for adults, it's always related to the full-side pitch. Anyway, so we did a 15-a-side normal rules, and we did 4 different games, 1 normal and 3 modified. And the basic, we played them, and we videoed them all, and we took all the stats. I went through it painstakingly. And these are, say, for example, touches. This is what happened. On the right there is the 15-a-side. So the 15-a-side had 25. I should look at this one there. They had 28, okay, 28 more. They had 28 person touches on all of the small-sided games, no matter what modification we put in. The first one, the normal one, playing the same rules, same areas, was 34 to 28. When we went down further, when we reduced the different conditions in, they just kept going up and up. So from my perspective, that kind of confirmed I'm on the right track here, folks. I'm on the right track. So even with seniors now, I want to get a concept across. I start with smaller numbers. That's what I do, and build it up. Anyway, so how often was the perception action there used in the 15-a-side? 28 times by 30 players. The 30 players there each of them used it 28 times. In all the other games, it went up to treble. See that? Treble in small-sided games. So they're involving this mechanism 3 times as much as they are at the 15-a-side. Anyway, I think that led into the, it helped move into the Go Games era, okay? I don't want to be claiming credit for getting into it. It was on the way. Anyway, under 14, we took 15-a-side, 7-a-side. We played two 15-a-side games, took them out. Then when we finished with them, we played another day, we played two 7-a-side games. We took 7 from the 15 and played two 7-a-side games, okay? So we come up with the same space. They were on the same area, so we didn't manipulate the size, the field. They were still covered. Even though we didn't manipulate the size, we're still keeping the same area as the 15-a-side. There's all the skills there that we looked at. Foot passes, hand passes, anything you could mention that was put in. The whole shooting gallery was put in there. It was painstaking, I can tell you that. That was the part. But selected skills, possession characteristics, number of team possessions, the skills per possession, we did all that. Physiological responses, heart rates. These 14-year-olds did a VO2 max test. They came into the college and did it. They agreed. Their parents had to sign all sorts of things, and they had to agree to it. And they came in and did that. They enjoyed it immensely. So we had the numbers there. We had their VO2 max, and we had their heart rates at every stage, you know, and we took every 5 seconds of the whole thing. So we knew exactly how to transfer heart rate max into what they're reaching in VO2 max, okay? And all the games, the small-sided games, were high intensity. So you could train by that. Do you understand? That's what we're trying to work on to get people fit. So why not get them fit in game situations, in games that you're demanding all the skills be used, okay? That's my philosophy. Enjoyment, and these guys are 14 years of age. We gave them a leaflet to fill in, but it was to assess their perception of themselves. Perception of themselves. It was a validated method. So the results we got there, the enjoyment were 15-a-side, pretty good. 7-a-side, miles ahead of it. 15-a-side, perceived competence, much ahead. So these kids really believed in themselves when they were playing these 7-a-side games. They loved it. They believed in themselves. They felt good about themselves. And if you can get people, even adults, to be doing that, they're less likely to leave or transfer. And kids are less likely to go to another sport if they're enjoying what they're doing, okay? So touches per player. In the 15-a-side, it was 22.6, and it was 2.5 times in the 7-a-side. All covering the same area, just different size pitch, but the same area, and just playing. And the same game, okay? So that, again, the action, perception-action connection there was right there again. Selected skills performed, catches, miles ahead. Passes, miles ahead. Scoring attempts, miles ahead. They're scientific findings that we had. So there's no way I could change. I now know, as an old man in my 70s, retired, I now know, yeah, you were doing fairly right all the time, okay? So that's why I'm such a gobshite. Okay, so, excuse the language, ladies there. So the total number there, see, the total number of scores in the game, 21 in the 7-a-side game. There's 21. One player had 9. Two players had 5. 4 players had 3, 2, 1, and one outfield player had none. There was a goalkeeper in that too for the 7, but one of them had none. There was 3 in the 15-a-side game, and the same guy got all 3. So look at what the other guys all missed out in terms of perception, action, and the passing and moving, and the whole life is passing these guys by in this situation, right? So that was further evidence there. The heart rate max were up to 90%. So, I mean, what more can you demand in training in the game? Right through the game, the average was that. Okay? And then the VO2 max, that's a related, estimated VO2 max based on the numbers, from the protocol, right? The third one, I'm over here. I've finished, fellas. You're happy enough with that? Sorry, it's -4, so I don't. It's disrespectful to go any further. You happy enough with that? Okay. It's going to support the same thing, the next one that we did. So, okay. Thanks very much, fellas. Yeah. Yep.